Big John Studd was one of the 80s most monstrous heels who made heroes like Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant look superhuman. In a time where bigger meant better, John pushed his body to extremes, building his frame to a massive 364 pounds through whatever means necessary. But in 1994, doctors gave John devastating news. He had only 1 month to live. On February 19, 1948, John William Minton was born in Butler, Pennsylvania. Before wrestling, he was a military police officer in the U.S. Army, and his massive size definitely helped him keep order. He trained under Killer Kowalski, and this matters because most giants in wrestling could get by on size alone. The fact that John learned from Kowalski, one of wrestling's best trainers, shows he wanted to be more than just another big wrestler. John started wrestling as the Mighty Minton in summer 1972 for NWA Hollywood. A few months later, he moved to the Worldwide Wrestling Federation as Chuck O'Connor, finishing that year with matches against stars like Chief Jay Strongbow and Gorilla Monsoon. John stayed with the WWF until February 1973, took a break from wrestling, then joined Mid-Atlantic in January the next year. When John joined Mid-Atlantic Wrestling, he still used the name Chuck O'Connor. Here, he started doing a lot of team matches. He partnered with wrestlers like Super Destroyer, Ivan Koloff, and Ric Flair. He spent about a year there, doing okay but not great, mostly in team fights. In January 1975, John went to the AWA, still using the name Chuck O'Connor. He had some wins and losses there before heading back to the WWF in 1976. This time, he became Executioner 2, teaming up with Executioner 1, who turned out to be his old trainer, Killer Kowalski. With Captain Lou Albano as their manager, they won the tag team titles in May 1976. The team later added a third member when Nikolai Volkov joined as Executioner 3. John left the Worldwide Wrestling Federation in 1977 to wrestle in Texas NWA promotions, mainly Houston Wrestling and NWA Big Time. During this period, he went by Big John Studd in Big Time Wrestling and Captain USA in Houston. He had several major matches, including a big victory over Bruiser Brody in a Loser Leaves Texas match, where he also won the NWA American Heavyweight title. His success continued as he won the NWA Hawaii Tag titles with Buddy Rose, and when he went back to Mid-Atlantic, he and Ric Flair took the NWA Mid-Atlantic Tag titles from Paul Jones and Ricky Steamboat. John stayed in Mid-Atlantic until 1980 before moving to the AWA, where they booked him as an unstoppable giant who kept beating wrestlers like Dino Bravo and Mad Dog Vachon. After successful runs in Georgia Championship Wrestling and the CWF, where he had some great matches with Dusty Rhodes, Big John Studd joined the WWF in November 1982 for what would become his most famous run. At this time, Andre the Giant was one of the few true giants in the WWF, especially in the early 80s. When John Studd arrived, he towered over most other wrestlers and was booked to crush everyone he faced. Big John Studd made a perfect bad guy. He was huge, mean, and finished matches quickly. Together with his manager Freddie Blassie, he became the perfect monster villain, even bringing a stretcher to his matches for the opponents he would beat up badly. This, of course, would lead to championship opportunities, where Big John Studd would challenge WWF Golden Boy, at the time Bob Backlund, but the matches would typically end via countout or disqualification. This brings us to the Body Slam Challenge. Classy Freddie Blassie and Big John Studd would state that John could not be body slammed. It was an impossible feat that no man could accomplish. Confident in their statements, Blassie and Studd offered 10 grand, later 15 grand, to anyone who could step up and scoop the big man off his feet. Andre the Giant was the one wrestler everyone believed could do it. When Andre tried to slam Studd, Freddie Blassie stepped in to stop him, which started a major money-making rivalry between these two giants. Studd and Andre went on to have many big matches against each other, including battles inside a steel cage. The feud with Andre the Giant launched John's career to new heights. They were bringing in huge crowds, which helped John get more chances to fight for the title. Before the first WrestleMania, Studd had matches against Hulk Hogan that were different from typical championship matches. Usually, everyone knew who would win when Hogan defended his title, but Studd made people wonder if he might actually beat Hogan. John had all the qualities WWF wanted in a villain champion: size, wrestling skill, the right look, and proven ability to draw crowds with Andre. Though he never took the title from Hogan, their matches were solid. They'd actually wrestled before in Japan during a 1983 New Japan Pro Wrestling tour. Funny enough, Andre was there too and even teamed up with Stud, showing how wrestling stories were totally different in Japan than in America. Later, Stud joined Bobby Heenan's group after he and another Heenan member, Ken Patera, got disqualified in a match against Andre the Giant and SD Jones. After that match, Stud and Patera attacked Andre and cut his hair right in the middle of the ring. The haircutting incident was huge at the time. Fans went wild seeing Andre get beaten and humiliated like that. Nobody treated Andre the Giant this way back then, so seeing him embarrassed in the middle of the ring was shocking. To get back at Stud, Andre took on the $15,000 Body Slam challenge at WrestleMania I. The stakes were high. If Andre could slam Stud before time ran out and prevent Stud from slamming him first, he'd win the money. But if Andre failed, he'd have to quit wrestling forever. While WWE usually credits WrestleMania I's success to Hulk Hogan, Mr. T, and the celebrity turnout at Madison Square Garden, and yes, these were crucial in getting media attention, Andre and Stud deserve recognition too. The Body Slam Challenge was a major selling point for WrestleMania in 1985, with fans eager to see if Andre could win the money and get his revenge. The match itself was short but effective. Andre completely overpowered Big John Stud, and when he finally slammed him, the crowd erupted in one of the night's biggest reactions. Andre grabbed the money bag and started throwing cash to the fans. While it wasn't a technical masterpiece, it created a memorable moment that deserves more credit in WrestleMania history. After WrestleMania I, Stud teamed up with another wrestler from Bobby Heenan's group, King Kong Bundy. Together they formed one of WWE's biggest tag teams ever. Throughout 1985 and into 1986, Bundy and Stud kept fighting Andre the Giant, who brought in various good guy wrestlers to help him fight back. He partnered with stars like Hulk Hogan, Hillbilly Jim, and Junkyard Dog to battle against Stud and Bundy. The team of King Kong Bundy and Big John Stud seems largely forgotten today, which isn't fair given how intimidating they were as a duo. The issue was really with WWF's booking style back then. They focused on sending fans home happy. Bad guys were there mainly to make the heroes look unbeatable, and Bundy and Stud fell into this pattern. While they had their moments when big matches came around, they usually ended up losing. That's just how it worked if you were a villain back then, and both Bundy and Stud played their parts perfectly. But if they'd won more important matches, they'd probably be better remembered today. It's not that heel teams never won in mid-80s WWF. Groups like the Hart Foundation and the Dream Team did well for themselves. But when you were up against stars like Andre the Giant and Hulk Hogan, that was a whole different story. You were there to make them look good. While King Kong Bundy got a main event match against Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania II, Big John Stud was part of the famous battle royal that mixed wrestlers with NFL players. Stud played a key role, eliminating William the Refrigerator Perry, but then got thrown out himself after shaking Perry's hand. Andre went on to win the Battle Royal, and Hogan beat Bundy, showing again how the good guys always came out on top. After WrestleMania II, Bundy and Stud got into a feud with a group called the Machines. Some background here: Andre had missed several matches against Bundy and Stud, which led to Bobby Heenan getting him suspended from WWF. The real story was that Andre's health was getting worse. He was filming The Princess Bride in England, and he wanted to slow down his wrestling career. When Andre came back, he wore a mask and called himself the Giant Machine, supposedly a wrestler from Japan. He teamed up with Super Machine, who was really Bill Eadie. Everyone could tell it was obviously Andre under the mask. He was huge and moved just like Andre. Bobby Heenan kept trying to prove Giant Machine was really Andre, but could never officially prove it. Eventually, Giant Machine disappeared and Andre came back as himself. Since Heenan's group never managed to unmask Giant Machine, they couldn't prove anything, making for some great wrestling storytelling. Near the end of 1986, the WWF started hinting at trouble between Bundy and Stud as they began arguing with each other. This looked like it was building to a match between them at WrestleMania III. But instead, Stud chose to retire while he was still a major star in the World Wrestling Federation. When Big John Studd came back to WWF in December 1988, people had different theories about why. Some believed he knew about his serious illness and wanted to earn good money before having to quit for good. Others thought WWF brought him back because Andre the Giant was planning to retire, and they needed another giant to fill his spot, though nobody could really replace Andre. The true reason for Studd's 1988 comeback remains a mystery. The Big John Studd who returned in 1989 just wasn't the same wrestler fans remembered. WWF had grown into a company filled with giant wrestlers, so Studd's size wasn't as impressive anymore. What made things tougher was that these new big guys were more agile in the ring than Studd. There was no getting around that fact. Making him a good guy was another problem, especially without someone like Bobby Heenan doing his talking for him. Now, Studd wasn't bad at promos. He could talk fine. But after having Heenan speak for you, anything else feels like a step down. Plus, WWF in 1989 was full of over-the-top characters who were great at talking. Next to them, Studd's style felt old-fashioned. Studd made his comeback on Brother Love's show segment. Bobby Heenan was thrilled at first, thinking Studd would rejoin his group. But Studd refused because Andre the Giant, his old enemy, was now part of Heenan's team. This turned Studd into a good guy with the fans. Studd winning the 1989 Royal Rumble was a big moment in his career, though it was an unexpected choice by WWF. Most people thought Ted DiBiase or Big Boss Man would win. Back then, winning the Royal Rumble didn't get you anything special like it does today. But it was still a huge achievement for Studd, one that fans still remember well. His last big appearance was at WrestleMania I, where he was the referee for a match between Jake Roberts and his old rival Andre the Giant. The match ended when Andre got disqualified for attacking Studd from behind. A few months later, on June 4th, Studd had his final WWF match. He left the company because he felt he wasn't getting paid enough. Some say he just packed up and left during a live event, never to return. There were rumors that Jim Herd wanted to bring him to WCW after he left WWF. But Studd was tired of all the traveling that came with being a wrestler, so he decided to retire completely. In autumn 1993, when life seemed normal for John, he discovered something concerning: a lump in his armpit. Though it wasn't causing him pain, he wisely decided to have it checked by a doctor. That's when he received devastating news. The doctors discovered a large tumor in his chest. It was cancer, news that shattered John's world. This diagnosis came after years of wrestling in an era that demanded larger-than-life physiques from performers. Like many wrestlers of the 1980s, John had felt pressure to maintain and enhance his impressive size to meet audience and industry expectations. While naturally a large man, the demanding nature of wrestling often led performers like him to use steroids to maintain their size and recover from injuries. The connection between his cancer and steroid use was something John himself would later acknowledge. He developed Hodgkin's lymphoma, which doctors linked to his long-term steroid use, a fact he bravely shared as a warning to others. His friend, superstar Billy Graham, later revealed that John had expressed regret about using steroids, believing they contributed to his illness. It was a tragic consequence of an era when even natural giants felt pressured to push their bodies to dangerous extremes. True to his fighting spirit, John faced cancer head-on and began chemotherapy. The treatment was brutal, but it seemed to be working. The tumor started shrinking, and his condition improved. Doctors became optimistic, even suggesting he might return to wrestling within 6 months. It was a ray of hope during a dark time. But in 1994, the cancer returned aggressively. The doctors recommended a bone marrow transplant as the next step, but they faced a critical obstacle. They couldn't find a matching donor for John. With no matching donor, doctors had to deliver devastating news to John. He likely had only about a month to live. Yet even facing these odds, John's fighting spirit remained unbroken. He opted for an extremely risky procedure called an autotransplantation, which carried just a 7% chance of success. Against incredible odds, the procedure worked. The tumor disappeared and John was able to return home to his family. It seemed like a miracle, and everyone dared to hope he'd beaten cancer for good. But in September 1994, just months after returning home, John suffered another setback when his lungs collapsed, requiring immediate hospitalization. Through it all, John kept fighting with remarkable courage. He returned to the hospital in February 1995 for more chemotherapy, but received heartbreaking news. The cancer had spread throughout his body and treatment options were exhausted. On March 20th, 1995, John passed away peacefully. After fighting cancer with the same determination he showed in the ring, he was laid to rest in Pennsylvania. Big John Studd was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame in 2004, honoring his lasting impact on professional wrestling. Looking back at Big John Studd's career, it's clear why he stands as one of wrestling's most overlooked giants. He played a crucial role in elevating stars like Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant. As one of the biggest heels of the mid-'80s, both physically and in character, Studd gave these heroes the perfect opponent to prove themselves against. While Andre and Hogan were already stars before facing Studd, he provided them with some of their most memorable rivalries. Beating someone like Big John Studd meant something. His size and dominance made every victory over him feel significant. Throughout his career, Studd proved his value, from his time with the Executioners to his excellent partnership with King Kong Bundy, and especially his profitable feud with Andre the Giant that drew huge crowds everywhere they went. Though his 1988 comeback may not have reached the same heights, Big John Studd's impact on wrestling deserves far more recognition than it receives today. If this look back at Big John Studd's career resonated with you, please hit that like button. Subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into wrestling history and stories about the legends who shaped the sport. Turn on notifications to catch all our new uploads. Share your favorite Big John Studd moment in the comments. We'd love to hear your thoughts.